Good afternoon, Your Honor. My name is Dylan Shalabro, and I, along with my co-counsel Andrew Edge, represent the plaintiff in this case, Jordan Street, for the wrongful death of her daughter. Your Honor, pursuant to pretrial matters, the plaintiff is ready to proceed to opening statements.
Okay, and does defense want to make appearances?
Yes. Good afternoon, Your Honor. Philip Minecoth, along with my second chair, Brennan Olson, representing the defense, and Coach Reese Taylor.
Okay. And plaintiff, do you have any pretrial matters?
Yes, Your Honor. Starting with some housekeeping matters. May we have free leave of the courtroom? Of course, keeping in mind that we are on camera, so just staying within the purview.
Yes, you can feel free as long as you're within the screen. Sit up, stand up, sit down.
Your Honor, may I assume that all sidebars are constructive?
Considering the fact that this is a bench trial, there's no need for anything like that.
May we assume that all witnesses are pre-sworn?
Yes.
Now, throughout, Your Honor, there are exhibits in this file that are pre-marked. Would it be all right if we just use those pre-markings?
Yes.
Okay. Now, moving on to some of the stipulations that me and opposing counsel were able to work out before trial. We've both stipulated to pre-admit Exhibit 2, which is the aerial view of the field.
Okay.
Court on notice of that. We've also stipulated to keep out a note that Jess Merriweather will testify about, or any mention of a note that she found in her classroom regarding snow. Both parties have agreed to exclude that in this trial.
Okay.
Further, Your Honor, we've stipulated to exclude any mention of Merriweather saying that Rory hung out with the drug crowd or that she saw her outside smoking cigarettes at lunch.
Okay.
Further, Your Honor, at this time, the plaintiff would like to go ahead and pre-admit Exhibit 14, which is the autopsy report.
Is there any objection?
Your Honor, at this time, I do not have any objection to pre-admitting that exhibit.
Okay, so Exhibit 14 will be admitted.
Your Honor, the plaintiff would also like to remind the court that Exhibit 16, 17, and 21, per your pretrial order, Section 3C, have already been admitted into evidence. That is Dr. Reagan McConaughey's report, Dr. McConaughey's CV, and the weather report for Waco, Texas for September 7, 2018. We just want to let the court know we'll probably be talking about this in closing arguments, but do not wish to go into that evidence at this time.
Okay.
With that, Your Honor, the plaintiff is ready to proceed.
Okay. Does the defense have any pretrial matters?
Yes, Your Honor, a couple of housekeeping matters. First, we would just ask, pursuant to 615, that all witnesses, aside from our party representative, Coach Taylor, be constructively sequestered from the courtroom.
Yes.
All right, and in addition to that, it's my understanding that witnesses today have been provided with several of the exhibits in today's case. It's my intention that when I need to lay the foundation to enter an exhibit into evidence, I plan on doing that by just having that witness reference that electronic copy, and then only after it's admitted, displaying it on the share screen.
That's fine. And you don't have to ask permission to display any of it. Just feel free.
Thank you, Your Honor. And then in a similar vein, I would just like to draw the court's attention that in addition to the other pre-admitted exhibits, Exhibit 18 has also been pre-admitted today pursuant to the pre-trial order.
Correct.
Right. And I did want to draw the court's attention to a couple of motions that we had today. I'm happy to announce that we were able to confer with Mr. Shalabro before coming to trial, and we have reached a stipulation on both of those. The first is that we will be excluding any testimony or reference to tents or Gatorade stands that were put up at Waco High School after the death of the decedent, in this case, Rory Street.
Okay.
The next is that we will not be mentioning any testimony or any reference to a prior bad act from when Coach Taylor was a coach at a separate university where there was an incident with a player. That will be excluded as improper character evidence.
Okay.
Your Honor, plaintiff agrees, just wants to add the condition that if the door opens, that we be allowed to go into it.
Absolutely.
And with that, the defense has no further motions, and we are ready to proceed with trial.
Okay. Plaintiff, whenever you are ready.
Your Honor. May it please the court. Power is neither good nor evil. It's what a person decides to do with that power that really matters. And this defendant decided to abuse his power. Decided to abuse his power as a youth sports coach. Decided to abuse his power to the point where a child is dead. Rory Street was 17 years old. She was a high school junior. She was a star on her soccer team. The defendant will even testify that she could seem even superhuman on the field at times, but all too human in reality. Soccer season in Waco usually started at the end of August through September on into November. And as Your Honor knows, those summer months in Waco, they can be hot. And September 7th was no exception. September 7th, you're going to learn was triple-digit heat. You're going to learn that the defendant, rather than trying to schedule practice later that day when it was cooler, rather than trying to schedule practice that morning when it was cooler, wanted to schedule practice at that time for the heat of the day. You're going to learn that the defendant wanted to toughen his girls up. You're going to learn that he thought if they could handle the heat, they could handle the season. But Your Honor, the defendant did not just practice his players in that heat. He also punished them. Now, when Coach Taylor would decide to punish a player, his favorite place to send them was Burma Road. Burma Road is a place where a player would have to sprint 30 yards, dribble 30 yards, and then try to score. And if the plaintiff didn't make the basket or didn't make the goal or messed up a drill, they'd have to start the whole thing over again. And then once they finally got it in the goal, they'd have to bear crawl on their hands and feet 60 yards in triple-digit heat and do it again. Now, keep in mind, this is not the kind of drill you could do once or twice and then go back and join your team. This was the kind of drill you were going to do over and over again until this coach decided that he thought you had had enough. Which leads us to September 7th, 2018. You're going to learn that Aubrey Saracen was already at Burma Road. It was 3:15 p.m. It was practice. It was triple-digit heat. Rory Street was on the field. You're going to learn that Rory, the star player, she wasn't catching passes. She wasn't making passes. She was missing open goals. You're going to learn that the defendant wasn't having any of it. Aubrey Saracen is going to testify that she could hear the defendant yelling at Rory, screaming, "Get your sorry butt to Burma Road. We might as well run you till you pass out." When Rory got to Burma Road, Aubrey was there. And Aubrey's going to testify that when Rory got there, she wasn't doing well. She was pale. She was struggling. She was complaining of chest pain. And the defendant saw that too. You're going to learn that rather than sending Rory to the trainer, rather than getting her some water, rather than giving her some shade, rather than just asking if she was okay, the defendant decided to take it one step further. So he hollered at Rory. "Rory, you think you're special? Let me show you how special you are not." So coach brings Rory from Burma Road back to the field. He isolates her from her teammates. And he lines up her teammates in front of her, one by one, single file line. Then he'd blow his whistle and send each teammate one by one to tackle Rory to the ground. After the first time, Rory was struggling to get up. You're going to learn that coach ran over, yanked her up by her jersey, and said, "Do it again. Do it again, do it again, do it again." 15 times that coach blew the whistle, "Do it again." 15 times Rory dribbled, "Do it again." 15 times Rory hit the ground, "Do it again." 15 times over and over and over. "Do it again." Until that 15th time, Rory did not get back up. Your Honor, Rory never got back up. Rory died on that soccer field that day. Power is neither good nor evil. It's what someone does with that power that matters. And this defendant decided to abuse his power, decided to abuse it over a child. And because of that, we filed this lawsuit for wrongful death. Now, Your Honor, because we filed this lawsuit, we do carry the burden of proof in this case. We must prove to you by a preponderance of the evidence that the defendant failed to exercise ordinary care, that the defendant's conduct was the proximate cause of Rory's death. And Your Honor, we will meet that burden. You'll hear from Aubrey Saracen. Aubrey's going to tell you about the defendant's abusive behavior. You're going to hear from Dr. McConaughey. Now, Your Honor, I want to be the first to tell you that Rory did have cocaine in her system that day. We don't know why it was there. We don't know how it got there, but it was there. We don't deny that. But Dr. McConaughey is going to testify to a reasonable degree of medical certainty that Rory Street did not die of cocaine. Rory Street died of heat stroke. Your Honor, power is neither good nor evil. It's what a person does with that power that matters. And this defendant abused his. The defendant is liable.
Defense?
Out of nowhere. How Rory's close friend and longtime teammate described her sudden collapse during drills at soccer practice. Out of nowhere. The tough-as-nails soccer star whose ability and athleticism far outpaced her classmates collapsed out of nowhere. Not after calls for help or obvious symptoms of severe pain. Rory's best friend was caught completely off guard, just like everyone else. See, student athletes are tough. The athletes at Waco High are no exception. They fight through the summer heat to train and become the best. Rory Street, though, Rory was special. Rory wasn't just tough. Rory was practically superhuman. An extremely gifted athlete with toughness to spare. Rory once got a broken nose in her game in her junior season. Rory didn't complain. She didn't go to the bench. She played on. That was just her way. So it was no surprise then that Rory didn't complain during practice on September 7th of 2018. Sure, it was hot. Early September in Waco, it's hot often. And what you'll hear today is it's not uncommon for temperatures to get above 100 degrees. But just like the previous month, Rory attended for varsity practice, like all her teammates. Rory was playing hard, Rory was working hard, and Rory was running Burma Road. This was not some recreational soccer league. This was a team of players pushing themselves to their full potential. A team of players trying to get the most prestigious scholarships. A team of players wanting to be the best. And Rory was the best. Coach Taylor had no reason to think anything was concerning that day. Other students had been running Burma Road, including one doing it much longer than Rory had. No other students were having problems, and water was always available. A trainer, Jess Merriweather, was right there to help when needed. But the expert eyes of an athletic trainer never saw anything was amiss. Despite having a coach 20 yards away, Rory never said, "I don't feel well." Despite that trainer being there, Rory never said, "Something just isn't right." Most importantly, Rory never told anyone, "I'm using cocaine." Coach Taylor never expected that dangerous drugs were in the system of his star player, coursing through Rory's veins, causing blood vessels to constrict and her heart to react in a way that a routine practice player, it just wouldn't happen. Nobody, especially Coach Taylor, could possibly predict. That cocaine was the cause of this tragedy. Today, Jordan Street has brought this lawsuit against Coach Reese Taylor, alleging that Coach Taylor was negligent and he ran practice, and that negligence was the proximate cause of Rory Street's death. Our hearts go out to Jordan Street. No parent should suffer the tragedy of surviving their child, but today, blame for that tragedy has been misplaced. The plaintiff must prove to you, by a preponderance of the evidence, as the court knows more likely than not, that Coach Taylor was negligent, that Coach Taylor was the proximate cause of Rory's death. And this means that they must prove that a person using ordinary care would have foreseen that Rory's death might reasonably result from an otherwise routine practice. The evidence demonstrates that Rory's death was the tragic result of an illegal drug, use of a drug that she hid from her family, friends, and her coach. The evidence in this case comes down to three main components: the substance, the symptoms, and the signs. So let's talk about each one of those. You're going to hear let's start with the substance. You're going to hear from a couple experts today about what ultimately caused Rory's death. And importantly, you're going to see an autopsy report in this case. That autopsy report, the chief medical examiner found that Rory's death was attributed to sudden cardiac death. Such a young and promising life, that is tragic, but it's important. Because during the course of the autopsy, the medical examiner identified the presence of cocaine in Rory Street's blood. And that changes everything. Spencer London is an expert in the field of toxicology, how drugs interact with each other in a person's system. Mr. London is familiar with cocaine. Mr. London's report has already been admitted into evidence along with his CV outlining his 15 years as an expert in the field. After reviewing the autopsy, as well as the autopsy of the plaintiff's expert, you'll see today that Mr. London concluded that Rory's death was the result of this illicit drug. See, these two expert reports don't actually disagree on that much. Yes, Rory was suffering from heat stroke, but the cause of that heat stroke were the side effects, the symptoms of the drug that was running through her system. So let's talk about the symptoms. How do we know what caused the death? A closer look at these symptoms helps piece that puzzle together. The symptoms observed by fellow players are all consistent with cocaine use. And this illegal drug takes a terrible toll on the body, especially that of an athlete engaged in strenuous physical activity. While her teammates were fine in an otherwise routine practice, this dangerous drug caused a condition called hyperthermia. Rory Street's blood vessels were constricting, preventing her body from cooling itself, the way someone not using this drug would. Cocaine also causes a thing called myocarditis. That's swelling or inflammation of the heart muscle, which impacts the entire operation of the heart. Myocarditis is one of the physical symptoms associated with cocaine use, and it was observed during that autopsy. All of these symptoms are consistent with cocaine. That brings us to the signs. What we're looking for here are warning signs. Would a person of ordinary prudence like Coach Taylor be able to see this coming and do something to stop it? Would he be able to see that routine practice drills that everybody else was handling as usual and that had been run before would cause the shocking and tragic death of Rory Street? The answer is that there weren't signs, and certainly not a sign that Coach Taylor would see. Aubrey Spencer, the close friend and teammate of Rory, didn't notice anything from yards away while running Burma Road and having Rory on the field. Neither did the trainer who was there, as always, to supervise. And unfortunately, Rory never told her coach she was in distress, never asked for a water break, never said they needed a rest. Nobody saw anything other than it being an off day in terms of making goals. Everything was as usual. No one saw Rory using cocaine. That was something she hid from her adult. It wasn't until her friend Aubrey was within a few feet that anyone thought something looked off, but even Aubrey didn't think this required immediate medical attention. No one called for medical attention because no one thought it would be needed. This is an undeniable tragedy, but it's not one Coach Taylor had the power or ability to prevent. No one did. Nobody saw this coming. It was out of nowhere. Because no one knew that a star athlete was in trouble using cocaine. No one thought she needed help, and Coach Taylor was no different. Coach Taylor had no idea that what had changed in this routine practice was that Rory now had a dangerous drug in her system. At the end of this trial, I'm going to ask you to review the evidence and find that Coach Taylor is not liable for this unforeseeable and tragic death. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, plaintiff, you can call your first witness.
The plaintiff calls Aubrey Saracen to the stand.
Okay.
Will you please introduce yourself to us?
I'm Aubrey Saracen.
Ms. Saracen, I'm going to ask that you can speak up just a little bit. I know it's hard on these computers, but it'd be helpful if we could hear you a little better.
I'm Aubrey Saracen.
Aubrey, where do you live?
I live here in Waco right now.
Are you in school?
Yes, I'm at Rice University and studying engineering there.
Now, I know when I talked to you before we came in here, you're going to go to Rice in the future. Where are you in school now?
Right now, I am at Waco High.
What year are you?
I'm a senior.
You playing sports?
Yes, I play soccer. I've played since I was a kid.
Was Rory Street one of your teammates?
Yes, she was.
Well, Aubrey, I'd like to talk to you about the practice on September 7th, 2017. How hot was it out there that day?
It was a scorcher. It was really hot. I'd say over 100 degrees.
What time were you practicing?
We started practice around 3:15.
Was there any shade provided for you guys out there?
No, there's no trees out there.
Do you remember taking any breaks during that practice?
I don't remember taking any breaks that day.
Aubrey, tell me what you were doing at practice that day when it started.
Well, we started practicing on the practice field, doing a scrimmage, and that's where I started.
Now, after you started the practice, did Coach have you do anything?
I can't remember what I did, but I did something, and I got sent over to do Burma Road, which is a drill.
Aubrey, what is Burma Road specifically?
Burma Road is when we sprint for 30 yards, and then we dribble the ball for 30 yards, shoot the ball towards the goal, and then we have to bear crawl all the way back, which is 60 yards, and then we just start all over again. So it's pretty intense.
Now, where was Rory when you were at Burma Road?
When I started Burma Road, she was still practicing with the team on the field.
Did she stay there long?
No, a little while later, she got sent over to do Burma Road with me.
Now, Aubrey, before Rory got sent to do Burma Road with you, did you hear Coach say anything to Aubrey? Or Rory, excuse me.
Yes, Coach screaming at the top of his lungs and said to go. And he said that she was worthless on the field and to take her sorry butt over to Burma Road, and that he was going to run her till she passed out.
Aubrey, when Rory got to Burma Road, how did she seem?
Well, we started, and I noticed that she was struggling. She was pale and just didn't look too good.
Did she complain of anything specifically to you?
Yes, she told me that her chest was hurting and that she just felt funny.
Do you know if Coach could see her struggling?
Well, I could see Coach, so He did. He saw her struggling.
What did coach do?
Well, coach called her back over to the practice field.
What did coach say to Rory to call her back to the practice field?
Well, he said, damn it, Street, you're not practicing worth crap. You're lollygagging, and you get over here. You think you're special, and I'm going to show you how special you are.
What did coach have her do?
Coach had Rory stand on the field and had the other players line up in a line, and then coach would blow the whistle, and a player would run and slide tackle Rory, and they just went one after another.
Aubrey, what is a slide tackle?
A slide tackle is a move in soccer when you're trying to steal the ball, but you're flying towards the other player feet first. So a lot of times you end up with one player's cleats going in towards the other player's shin, and I mean it can get kind of brutal. It's a physical move.
Does it hurt?
Yes, it can be painful.
So what happened? A better question is, what did the defendant do the first time Rory was tackled to the ground?
Well, Rory was tackled and she fell. He just grabbed the back of her jersey and pulled her up, and then he blew the whistle and started it all over again.
How many times did the defendant make Rory get tackled to the ground?
About 15.
Now, in all your years playing sports at Waco High, on the soccer team, specifically with this defendant, have you ever seen anything like this?
No, I mean, a slide tackle is a move, but I've never seen a drill like this before.
Had you ever heard of anything like this?
No, it's not something we'd ever done. I hadn't heard of it either.
Now, Aubrey, I know this is going to be difficult, but what happened to Rory after the 15th time she was tackled to the ground?
Well, she collapsed again, but she started convulsing and shaking. I was super scared, and then she just kind of went lifeless.
Was Rory saying anything?
Somebody screamed to get an ambulance.
Aubrey, did the ambulance get there in time?
No, she died on the field.
Pass the witness at this time, Your Honor.
Saracen, I'd like to talk about your historical relationship with Rory. Now, prior to this tragedy, you and Rory were close friends, right?
Yes, we were.
Mates on the same soccer field.
Yes.
And historically, as Rory's friend, you never knew her as a person who would take any sort of illegal drug.
Oh, absolutely not.
It would surprise you to find out that she had taken a drug that day.
Shocking, yes.
In your opinion, that would be unusual.
It's more than unusual if it was true. It was the first time. I'd never known of anything like that.
Now, I would like to talk about you and your teammates' practice routine generally. Your practice season begins in August, right?
Yes.
And then it runs into September and October.
Yes.
And all the players would be attending these practices in these months.
That's right.
During these few months, it's not unusual for temperatures to rise above 100 degrees.
Oh, for sure. That's right.
So at practices, there are water bottles provided.
Yes.
And you also have a trainer present in case anyone needs to have an injury treated.
Yes.
And now another semi-routine part of practice is what you referred to on direct as Burma Road, right?
Right.
That's something that you would sometimes have to run.
Yes.
And this would be run during those summer months.
Yes.
As you mentioned on direct, you don't even remember exactly why you had to run Burma Road, right?
That day in particular, no, I don't remember.
And you're aware that this isn't just routine with Coach Taylor. This Burma Road's been a part of Waco soccer for years.
Right.
So, Ms. Saracen, I'd like to talk about September 7th specifically now. On that afternoon, you had been running Burma Road, right?
Yes.
And you don't remember exactly how long it was you'd been running, right?
No, not exactly.
And from that point of view, Rory was about 20 yards away on the scrimmage field.
Yes, that's about right.
And this is when she is sent over to run Burma Road with you.
Right.
And it wasn't until Rory Street was there running these drills with you that you noticed she was looking a little pale.
Yes.
So it was only after she joined you during these drills that you noticed this.
Yes, that's when I noticed.
And at this point, you two are feet away.
Yes.
Saracen, I'd like to talk to you about what happened next. Now, you saw Rory looking unusually pale. You didn't report that to Coach Taylor.
No.
Now, at this point, Rory is called over for these slide tackle drills.
Yes.
Now, I want to be clear here. A slide tackle is something you've seen before.
Yes.
It's a common part of the game of soccer.
Yes.
And what was different about this drill was there were 15 of them.
Yes.
All right. And during this slide tackle drill, you never mentioned Rory's condition looking unusual to Coach Taylor.
No.
Miss Street herself never interrupted the drill and said anything to Coach Taylor.
She never said anything, no.
To your knowledge, none of the other students told Coach Taylor that Rory was looking unusual.
No.
And you knew Rory was extremely tough.
She was tough, yes.
What I mean by that is you've once seen her play an entire game with a broken nose.
I know it was about half the game, at least, that she did play with a broken nose, and she didn't even complain.
And she never came off the field.
No.
And at the end of this drill is when Rory collapsed.
Yes.
And at the time, it felt like that collapse came from out of nowhere.
And I definitely didn't expect her to die that day.
I'm going to ask you to pause for 1 second because I think we just lost a scoring judge.
Certainly, Your Honor.
So we have stopped your time and all that. We're just going to try to get him back.
Ms. Saracen, I'm going to back up just that one question. After running this drill is when Rory collapsed. And I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Would you please speak up?
Yes.
Thank you. And at that time, the day of, that collapse felt like it came out of nowhere.
I mean, I definitely, she died. Yeah. I never saw anything coming.
I understand the news of her death was shocking as well, but that collapse felt like it came out of nowhere that day.
Yeah.
And Ms. Saracen, I know we talked a little bit about your friendship with Rory historically. I'd like to talk about your experiences with Rory that day. You and Rory attend the same school,
Yes.
and throughout the day, you never saw her ingest any drug.
No.
Throughout practice, you had no reason to believe that Miss Street might have been using.
I'm sorry, could you repeat that? It glitched.
I apologize. Throughout that day, throughout that practice, you had no reason to believe that Miss Street had a dangerous drug in her system.
Exactly, that's right. I had no idea that she had anything.
And that day you were running Burma Road with Rory, right?
Yes.
It's a challenging exercise.
Yes.
It exhausts you.
Yes.
You never felt like you were having chest pains.
No.
You certainly had never taken cocaine that day either, right?
No, absolutely not.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Aubrey, did you also have to run and do those slide drills?
No, I didn't.
Aubrey, did you ever see Rory get a break?
No, I didn't.
Did you ever see anyone bring her some water?
No, we didn't get any water.
To your knowledge, was anyone else on the team subjected to triple-digit heat, Burma Road, and slide tackles?
No, just Rory.
Nothing further.
Okay, this witness may be excused. All right, plaintiff, do you have another witness?
Yes, Your Honor. The plaintiff calls Jordan Street via deposition. Would it be all right if my co-counsel answered the questions for me?
Yes, that's fine.
Just give me the nod when you're ready.
Ready to go.
Signing court and counsel to page 2 of Jordan Street deposition, line 6. Good morning. Please state your name for the record.
My name is Jordan Street.
How old are you?
I'm 55 years old.
Where are you from?
I live here in Waco and have all my life.
Are you married?
I'm not. I was married, but my spouse passed away several years ago.
Do you have any children?
I did. My daughter, Rory.
Line 23. What happened to Rory?
She died at soccer practice on September 7th, 2018.
Signing court and counsel at page 2, line 8. How old was Rory at the time of her death?
17 years old.
Was Rory in high school?
Yes.
Where did she go to school?
Rory went to Waco High, just like me.
Did Rory participate in any sports?
Yes. She played varsity soccer for the school. She also played soccer for a private traveling club team on the weekends. To be honest, that kid's life was pretty much soccer 24/7. Getting her to read a book was the hard part.
Signing court and counsel to page 7, line 8. Did Rory regularly visit her pediatrician?
At least once a year for a physical.
During any of those yearly physicals, were there any issues?
None. Rory had never had any serious medical issues, just normal kid stuff.
Signing court and counsel to page 8, line 3. Do you know what a slide tackle is?
Sure,
Are slide tackles part of the game of soccer?
of course they are. You turn on any game and you're going to see players at every level performing slide tackles. That is part of the deal.
Are slide tackles violent?
They can be. I mean, it's soccer, so a lot of the injuries are pretend acting. But anytime you're running full speed and slide feet first at another person's legs, that can be a dangerous situation.
Line 18. It's just looking for mechanics here. I'm not really sure what a slide tackle is.
Well, at a very basic level, you could collide with the player and trip them or knock them to the ground. And again, you're running fast, so that collision can be violent. Also, you're talking about leg-on-leg contact, so there is always risk for a knee injury or an ankle injury or even a broken bone. I know what some people think about soccer, but it can be a very, very violent game at times.
Ask the witness, Your Honor.
All right, does defense have any lines they want to read in?
Yes, Your Honor. And if I may have my second chair, Brandon Olson, read the answers.
Yes.
Mr. Olson, do you have your deposition in front of you?
I do, yes.
On page 5, line 12. Did you push Rory to be an athlete?
Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if I would use the word push. I encouraged Rory to work hard at sports and at everything else in her life. I taught Rory to never show weakness and to never complain. I wanted her to be tough, to play through the pain, because that is what makes a champion. Rory was tough because I made her tough.
Page 6, line 4. Did you have to stay on top of Rory to make sure she was practicing? Excuse me, Your Honor. Did you have to stay on top of Rory to make sure she was practicing and keeping up with exercising?
Not any more than any other parent of a teenager. Rory sometimes wanted to goof off instead of following Coach Taylor's non-practice exercise routines, and I would have to remind her of what soccer means for college and maybe a pro career.
Page 6, line 18. Was Rory a discipline problem?
No, not any more than other kids that age. I mean, she was a little wild and liked to have fun, but she wasn't some hippie smoking dope behind the school or some party animal who stayed out all night. Rory got in trouble a few times, and I got called by the principal a few times, but it was just normal teenager stuff, being late to class, goofing around, or missing some homework assignments.
Page 7, line 3. Do you believe that discipline is important for a kid?
Yes, 100%. You know, my granddaddy always said, the rod, spoil the child. And I believe in that. You can't let them get away with being lazy and entitled. You have to keep them in line.
Page 7, line 14. Did you go to Waco High?
Yes, I did. I'm a Lion through and through.
When you were at Waco High, did you play any sports?
I played soccer, just like Rory, but we won a state championship while I was there.
When you were playing soccer at Waco High, did you ever have to run Burma Road?
Hell yeah, we did. I remember doing that when we were dogging it, or if we weren't in the correct position or something. Coach would send us off to run Burma Road.
Page 9, line 11. Did you have any part in Coach Taylor being hired?
Yes, I was instrumental in getting Coach Taylor hired. Wish I hadn't been, but I was.
Why did you want Coach Taylor?
We wanted a winning coach. I wanted Rory to be coached by a winner. That's what we wanted. And we thought that Coach Taylor was the right person for that job. Looking back now, it was obviously a huge mistake on my part.
Further readings, Your Honor.
All right. Does plaintiff have anything further?
No, Your Honor. Plaintiff rests.
Okay. Does the defense have any witnesses?
Your Honor. At this time, the defense would like to read in the testimony of Ms. Jess Merriweather, again, just as we did before, having my co-counsel read in the answer responses.
Okay, and let me just give you guys an update on time. Plaintiff, you have 39 minutes and 10 seconds remaining. Defense, you have 36 minutes and 27 seconds remaining.
Thank you.
And you can go ahead.
Just one moment, Your Honor. My apologies.
That's fine.
All right. Beginning on page 2, line 6. Good morning. Would you please state your name for the record?
Hello there. My name is Jess Merriweather.
Page 2, line 13. How long have you lived in Waco?
Just a couple of years now. I grew up in Houston, then I went to Texas A&M for undergrad, and then I got a master's degree in sports training from A&M as well. After that, I worked for a couple of years at another high school and college station before I got the job at Waco High.
What is your job at Waco High?
I'm an athletic trainer, and I also teach health.
What is the job of an athletic trainer at a high school?
We have various teams and activities at the school that involve some level of physical activity and competition. Everything from football to soccer to volleyball to cheerleading and drill team. As a trainer, I work with the students that participate in those activities to keep them healthy and in shape and to treat any injuries that they have.
Do you attend practices?
Yes, depending on what time of the year it is, it may be football or soccer or something else, but there is always a trainer at any official practice for our various athletic teams.
How long have you been an athletic trainer?
About 2 years now.
Page 3, line 13. Did you do any athletic training while you were at A&M?
That was the whole point of the program. I worked with football players, track athletes, basketball players, and more while completing my master's degree in sports training. So it isn't like the job at Waco High was the first time that I've ever done athletic training.
Page 4, line 4. Have you worked with Coach Taylor?
I have,
In what capacity?
as a trainer. So I've attended soccer practices and soccer games where Coach Taylor was the coach. I've worked with Coach Taylor in order to treat an injured player. And I've worked with Coach Taylor just overseeing the students during practices and games.
Page 4, line 20. How did you know Rory?
Well, she was a varsity soccer player, so I worked with her as a trainer for the varsity soccer team, just like any other player.
Page 5, line 20. You said that you worked with Rory as an athletic trainer. Did you interact with Rory in any other capacity?
Rory was in my health class that year, so I would see her 3 days out of the week in health class.
Page 8, line 8. Were you at practice the day Rory died?
I was.
Did you see Rory running Burma Road?
I saw Rory over on Burma Road, but I wasn't watching her closely.
Did you see Rory during the slide tackling drill?
Again, I saw that it was happening, and I certainly saw parts of it, but I didn't watch it closely.
What were you doing while all of this was going on?
I was taping another student's ankle about 40 yards away.
At that time, did you see Rory stumbling, faltering, or slowing down in any way that would have indicated she was in trouble?
No, not at all.
Was Rory sweating hard?
I mean, yes, but everyone was, including me. It was a really hot day.
Did Rory ever say anything to you about feeling bad that day?
No, never said anything to me. And here's the thing, I'm there to take care of those players, and they know it. I'm kind of a combination trainer and guardian to the team, so they trust me, and I trust them to tell me if something is wrong or if they're hurting. Rory didn't say a word, and she would have. Rory was a tough kid, but she knew her limits and would let me or coach know when she needed water.
Players allowed to get water when they wanted.
Yes, all they have to do is ask, even if we're not on a water break.
Page 9, line 21. Based on your knowledge and experience in the field of physical education and sports training, do you think that Coach Taylor's means of disciplining Rory Street on the day in question were reasonable or appropriate?
I don't think they were unusual at all. Coach Taylor is a winning coach that pushes.
Go ahead.
Your Honor, this testimony seeks to elicit a causation issue and is therefore an improper opinion.
Response?
Now, this is not an improper opinion. The standard here is what a normal person using reasonable care would have foreseen as possible, or what they would have done, and if that would have been negligent. Here we have a trained health professional, someone who has worked with various coaches for many years, and they're simply describing, in their opinion, what was foreseen that day, what they perceived on that day, and whether or not that action was negligent, was outside the realm of normalcy.
Your Honor, that issue seeks to address the ultimate issue, and Jess Merriweather has not been tendered as an expert, will not be here to be called live, to be cross-examined, and therefore it's an improper legal conclusion.
Your Honor, if I may just briefly.
Yes, briefly.
This is just based on this witness's rationally based perceptions about what they were seeing that day.
So looking at the answer, it looks like lines 1 through 3 seem to talk about just her lay opinion. Lines 4 through 5 seem they're going into expert territory, so feel free to read in lines 1 through 3.
All right, certainly not.
I don't think they were unusual at all. Coach Taylor is a winning coach that pushes players, but Coach Taylor is also concerned about player safety. We talk about it all the time.
No further readings for this witness.
Does
Yes,
plaintiff
Your
have anything?
Yes,
Go
Your
ahead.
Honor.
Give me one moment.
Citing court and counsel to page 4, line 12. Do you have any role in designing drills for practices?
No, that is all Coach Taylor.
Do you have any role in disciplining players?
No, that is all Coach Taylor as well. I'm certainly there overseeing any on-field discipline that takes place, but I'm not directing that discipline or deciding who should be disciplined.
Page 10, line 6. Do you still work at Waco High?
Yeah, I got promoted to head trainer about 2 months ago, so it's going great.
Do you still work with Coach Taylor?
Of course I do. I work with all the coaches. Coach Taylor included. In fact, Coach Taylor is the one that wrote me the recommendation letter for the promotion to head trainer. Again, Coach Taylor has a lot of faith in me and my abilities, and I just want to try to impress him.
Pass the witness, Your Honor.
All right. Does the defense have another witness?
Yes, Your Honor. At this time, the defense would call Coach Reese Taylor to the stand.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Coach Taylor. Would you please introduce yourself and spell your last name for the record?
Hi, my name is Reese Taylor, Taylor.
Coach Taylor, I understand that you were the coach on duty during the practice where Rory collapsed. Would you please tell us a little bit about your involvement in that?
Yeah, so, I was a head coach at the time. I became the head coach because, I went to A&M in undergrad to study physical education. I knew I would always wanted to be a coach. So that was my start from the get-go. I wanted to go after that. And then I attended Waco High and, I got the opportunity to come back and be a coach here. So, I took it. And I've been coaching for 26 years or so.
Thank you, Mr. Coach Taylor. I'd like to break some of that down a little bit. We're talking about your credentials, and I'd like to kind of walk through that piece by piece, if we may. You mentioned you're a coach at Waco. How long have you taught at Waco exclusively?
6 years.
And you also mentioned that you used to coach before that?
Yeah.
About how long have you been coaching?
I'd say about 20 years.
And what sort of training and education did you get in order to coach for that long?
Yeah, so I went to Texas A&M to get a degree in physical education, and then I started coaching after.
And do you do anything to keep up with modern coaching techniques or practices?
Yeah, every year there's clinics that I attend, several different clinics that keep me up to date with, up-to-date techniques and, that training and those techniques, those recommendations that they give, they go all the way from high school to professional to, college level.
All right, Coach Taylor, tell us, since you started coaching at Waco High, how has the team's performance been?
It's gotten significantly better. We've been doing great. We've won district 5 out of the 6 times that we've gone. We made it to the finals a couple times, semifinals a couple times.
All right, now, Coach, I want to turn to the day of September 7th, 2018.
Okay.
What time did you start practice that day?
Same as we usually do, same as we've always done, around 3:15, 3:30.
And was Rory Street practicing that day?
Yes, she was.
What do you remember about Rory's practice from that day?
Rory wasn't performing, even at the standard that she normally does. She's our star athlete. She's, the star forward. So naturally, she's, the best one on the team. So you can see when she's not performing even normally, right? Like she's performing, but not at like her peak. The reason I say that is because it seemed like she was being a little, she was dogging it, kind of just lollygagging, not trying, it's happened before, right? So when I noticed that, we go into disciplinary tactics, methods. Go ahead.
Thank you, Coach Taylor. We'll discuss sort of the discipline in just a moment here, but before you have that discipline, about how far away from Rory are you at this point?
While during the scrimmage?
Yes.
I'd say about 20 yards, right? I think, if I can remember correctly.
And Coach Taylor, I'd like to get a feel for the scale of this soccer field a little bit more. I'd like you to look at Exhibit 10, please.
10?
10.
Okay, I see it.
Do you recognize this?
I do.
What is it?
It's a photograph of the practice field, the goal set up, the camera behind one of the goals.
Excuse me, I'm sorry, Coach Taylor. Does this fairly and accurately reflect the way your soccer field would have looked around September 7th of 2018?
Yes, it does.
Your Honor, permission to enter Exhibit 10 into evidence.
Any objection?
No, Your Honor, no objection.
Okay, Exhibit 10 is admitted.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. Now, Coach, looking at this soccer field, tell us a little bit about what we're seeing here.
I mean, you're seeing, a field where you see two people practicing.
And Coach, about how many people do you have that you're supervising on this field at any given time?
I mean, I'm the team, right? I'm having the whole team practice. So anywhere from, 15, 20, just depending on how many, most of my kids that show up for practice, the whole team.
Thank you, Mr. Olson. We can take that exhibit down. Now, earlier you mentioned that you noticed Rory's performance was lacking, so you decided to sort of implement discipline. What exactly did you do?
I did what we all once did. As a tradition of Waco High, we did the Burma Road. I did it when I was here, when the coaches instructed me to do it. It's tradition, disciplinary action.
Hi, Coach Taylor, and aside from when you used to do it as a student, how long have you been implementing Burma Road as a practice?
How long have I been implementing it? I mean, I use it as a disciplinary tactic. So whenever, as long as I've been at Waco High, that's a thing, right? It's not something new that was newly implemented or newly brought in. Like, this is something that, when I learned the techniques of it. It was a successful tool, so I've kept it.
All right, and Coach Taylor, how were you perceiving Rory to be reacting to this drill?
Again, Rory seemed like she wasn't wanting to hear my, criticism, my feedback and stuff. And Rory's had history of, not taking constructive criticism sometimes, or not listening to authority figures. So, I mean, it happens, right? And the way that we handle that is through disciplinary action.
All right, so when you noticed, it sounded like Rory still wasn't listening or responding to you. What did you do after the running of Burma Road drill?
So after the Burma Roads, since Rory is our best player, she's going to be in the game a lot. She plays a lot of games, and in the games, obviously, slide tackles occur. So we started to do slide tackle practices and drills.
All right, now we've heard that term a lot, slide tackling, and I just want to ask a little bit about that. Are slide tackles common in the sport of soccer?
Yeah, they are.
And how dangerous would you say they are normally?
I mean, it depends on the situation, right? Like, say a soccer player is going to get slide tackled from behind them when they don't see someone's coming. Well, I mean, that could break your leg, But if you're more aware of your surroundings, or if you see the person coming, you have a better way to react, and it's not as safe.
Right. And so when had you used this slide tackle drill that you were just talking about as a disciplinary action before?
So we've done slide tackle drills in the past. I did it differently this time, to where I had the kids line up in front so that Rory could see that, and then the kids would come at her like at least, just one-on-one essentially.
And how was Rory responding to this slide tackling drill?
I mean, there was impact, right? In slide tackling, sometimes you do have contact, and there is impact. So you mean, in slide tackling, sometimes people fall down and they get back up and then they fall down. I mean, it's kind of like it's a drill, right? The objective of the drill is to steal the ball, to take the possession away. So I mean, she was handling it.
Now, you've been in the courtroom this whole time, right?
All right.
And we heard earlier from Miss Saracen that you were yanking Rory up off the ground. How do you respond to that?
Yeah, so I don't recall that. Sometimes people might need help getting up or something, and sometimes you've seen coaches like give a hand, or help somebody by putting their hand on their back to like get them to stand up quicker or something. I mean, you see teammates help out their other teammates. If you ever watch people play different sports, they help their teammates up by helping them up.
Certainly. So, did Rory ever report anything to you about feeling uncomfortable or out of the ordinary?
No, had she done that, we would have stopped. Like, their safety is our first priority. Their health is our first priority, because if they're not performing at their peak, we're not progressing, right? We're not moving forward.
Right. And how did this slide tackling drill end?
So it ended with Rory getting tackled, falling to the ground, and then not getting up.
At any time, when did any of the other teammates alert you to anything unusual about Rory's appearance?
So nobody alerted me. I didn't notice anything different. Nobody said anything. You know, I wish Rory had told me, or somebody would have mentioned that, hey, something's wrong or something. There was no signs of any medical attention that was needed. You know, we had our trainer there present as well to make sure that, you know, I wasn't the only set of eyes there, just like we have at all our official practices.
Sorry, Coach Taylor. And had you seen any indication that day that Rory was using any illegal drug?
No, I mean, I don't know, right? I had no indication of that. I didn't see that. I didn't know of it. You know, had I known of that, she probably wouldn't have been at practice that day.
No further questions, Your Honor.
Coach Taylor, I'd like to talk to you a little bit about September 7th, 2018. It was hot that day.
What?
It was triple-digit heat.
You got there.
You had practice scheduled for 3:15.
I did.
Now, you scheduled this practice in the heat of the day for a reason.
Yep.
You wanted to toughen your girls up.
Yep.
You didn't wait till later in the afternoon until it cooled off.
Right.
You didn't schedule practice early that morning.
Right.
You scheduled practice in the heat of the day.
Right.
Now, let's talk about Rory a little bit at practice.
Okay.
Say Rory was different.
Yes.
Said she was missing passes.
She was.
Wasn't catching passes.
Right.
Missing open goals.
Right.
You wanted to punish Rory.
I mean, I wanted disciplinary action. Our star player, who has done this for a number of years the same way, under the same coach, under the same methods, is now not doing it and having a history of not listening to constructive criticism or feedback. We went to our disciplinary action, which is what we normally do.
Well, you mentioned she was your star player, so she was clearly acting different on this particular day.
Yeah, it seemed like she was lollygagging or dogging it or just not trying that day.
But you didn't check on her?
Check on her as in during practices?
That's correct.
Yeah, I mean, she was at practice. She was moving.
So that's a no, you did not check on her when she was acting different.
I don't understand. What would I have done to check on her?
I'm just asking you to answer my question, Coach Taylor.
I'm not
You
understanding.
did not check on her when she was acting different.
She was missing goals and easy shots.
And you did not check on her and ask what's wrong.
Why are you missing easy shots?
I'm going to redirect you back to my question and ask that you answer my questions as directly as you answered your counsel's.
Right.
When Rory was acting different, you did not check on her and ask if she was okay.
I did not ask her if she was okay for missing easy goals.
You did not ask if she needed water.
No, players are open to getting water if they need it at any time. They just have to ask.
You didn't ask if she needed a break.
No, I didn't.
What you did is you sent her to Burma Road.
Right. Her, Aubrey went there. She was going there. Yeah.
Because you said she wasn't listening.
Right. It seemed as though she was not listening to feedback, not trying.
And as you said before, nothing bothers you more than when someone doesn't listen.
I think I said that nothing bothers coaches more when their players don't listen to them.
And that applies to you.
I'm a coach.
Now, Burma Road is a drill where you make players sprint 30 yards.
Part of it. Yep.
They dribble 30 yards.
I do.
And then they have to try and score.
Yep.
If they mess anything up, they have to start over again.
Right.
Now, once they finally get the ball in the goal, they have to bear crawl 60 yards back
Bear crawl 60 yards back. Yep.
on their hands and feet
It's bear crawl.
in triple-digit heat.
Yep.
And you wanted to do this to Roy to teach her a lesson.
I mean, we did it all the time, right? It's a tradition.
So is that a yes?
Yep.
Now, you noticed that Rory wasn't doing too well.
Right.
But again, you didn't check on her.
Yeah, you already asked me that.
No, I'm talking about now.
Oh,
She was
again,
at Burma Road.
no, I didn't. Same deal. She looked like she was still dogging it. She is a stronger, in my opinion, obviously she's a stronger player than, she's our best player, right? So she can do probably more than what Aubrey can do, and you could tell that she wasn't trying as hard.
You didn't offer her water.
No, if she needed some, she could have asked for it. I wouldn't have said no.
You didn't offer her a break.
No. I mean, if anybody needed a break, they just could have asked, like, hey, I need a break.
And you decided because you thought she was dogging it to give her a whole new punishment.
Yeah.
You lined up all of Rory's teammates in a single file line.
Did.
You singled out Rory and isolated her from her teammates.
She's the best one.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Kicked her the ball.
Yep.
You blew the whistle.
I did.
Said dribble.
Yep.
Then you sent one of Rory's teammates to go tackle Rory.
To try to steal the ball from her, yeah.
And Rory would hit the ground.
In the event that, she got hit or, the objective of a slide tackle isn't to hit the other person, it's to steal the ball. In that sometimes impact does occur. And when impact occurs, sometimes people fall, right? So if she fell from the impact, then yeah, she fell. She got back up.
Coach Taylor, slide tackles involve impact.
Right.
Rory hit that ground multiple times that day.
She did.
And every time you blew that whistle, you sent another player to tackle Rory.
Right.
15 times you saw Rory struggle, but you didn't ask if she needed any water.
No.
Sorry,
I trust my players to, if they're thirsty or if they need something, I trust them to talk to me about it.
You saw her struggling. You didn't offer her a break.
I mean, a disciplinary matter, you have to struggle through it, right? If it's not a struggle, then it's not disciplinary action, right? Nobody wants to run horses on a basketball court, but you do it as a disciplinary action, right?
So you didn't offer her a break when you saw her struggling.
No.
Because that was the point, was to see her struggle.
You get better, right? You fight through it. That's
Is it
normal.
yet?
That's practice. It's athleticism.
Coach Taylor, seeing her struggle was the point.
Right.
Coach Taylor, after the last time you had Rory tackled,
Right.
she collapsed.
Unfortunately.
After the last time you had Rory tackled, she collapsed on the field.
Yes.
After the last time you had Rory tackled, she collapsed on the field, and she never got up. I need you to answer that question for me.
I didn't know that was a question. Yeah, that's right. That's what happened.
That's the witness.
Any redirect?
Yes, Your Honor. Coach Taylor, on cross-examination, you were asked about the temperature on September 7th that day. What's the temperature like at an average practice?
I mean, it's Waco. It's hot, and our summer is going back into the fall, so it's going to be in your upper 90s. It gets to the hundreds. It's Texas.
We're also asked about quite a lot about having Rory run Burma Road. How often is Burma Road used as a disciplinary action?
I mean, it's traditional, right? So whenever there's disciplinary action needed, kids run the Burma Road. I did it. People have done it since the 90s. It's tradition.
You also spoke on direct, said something about having Rory isolated from the rest of her team. How far away was she from the rest of her team?
Oh gosh, a number of yards. I can't remember the exact amount.
If you had to estimate, is it above or under 20?
It was a little bit above 20.
No further questions, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Taylor, you are excused. Are there any other witnesses from the defense?
Your Honor, at this time, the defense rests.
Okay. Currently, plaintiff, you are at 31 minutes and 30 seconds remaining. And defense, you are at 21 minutes and 17 seconds remaining.
Thank you, Your Honor.
Your Honor, I do not foresee exceeding 31 minutes in a closing argument. For whatever reason, I'm getting close. Come on, can I say 5 for rebuttal?
Yes.
Okay. And the plaintiff just requests just a quick 2-minute recess, and I promise I'll make it just that.
That's fine.
Thank you. Your Honor, the plaintiff is ready to proceed whenever the court is ready.
Whenever you're ready.
May it please the court. Go take your sorry butt to Burma Road. You're useless on the field, so might as well run you till you pass out. Damn it, Street, you don't practice worth a crap, and now you're lollygagging over there. I guess you think you're special. Come over here, and I'll show you how not special you are. This defendant took Rory Street, pulled her away from her teammates, and this grown man lined up each one of her teammates to take turns tackling her to the ground. The coach would blow the whistle, Rory would dribble, Rory would hit the ground. Do it again. Coach would blow the whistle, Rory would dribble, Rory would hit the ground. Do it again. Do it again, do it again, do it again. 15 times, over and over. This grown man had a 17-year-old girl tackled to the ground. And again, do it again. Your Honor, power is neither good nor evil. It's what a person decides to do with that power that matters. And this defendant decided to abuse his power, abuse it over a child, to the point that this child died. And because of that, we brought this lawsuit. And as I mentioned to you earlier in this trial and opening statements, we carried that burden today. We carried the burden of proving to you by a preponderance of the evidence that the defendant failed to exercise ordinary care and that the defendant's actions were the proximate cause of Rory Street's death. And Your Honor, I'd like to show you why we've met that burden. Andrew, would you mind pulling up the slides? I'd like to first start by showing you how the defendant failed to exercise ordinary care. The defendant organized intentionally a practice in triple-digit heat. The defendant didn't wait until later that evening, until it cooled down for his players to be safe. He didn't wait to schedule practice in the morning until it cooled down, until his players would be safe. He scheduled it in the heat of the day on purpose to toughen them up. Now, we learned that the defendant didn't hold just short practices. The defendant's practices would go on in upwards of 3 hours. 3 hours in triple-digit heats. And as Aubrey Saracen said, she can't even remember if they had a break. You got triple-digit heat, 3-hour practice, and no breaks. No breaks that anyone can recall. That is not exercising ordinary care. That is not taking care of the girls you've been entrusted to coach. And on top of the 3 things I just mentioned, he sent Rory out to Burma Road. Now, the defense tried to take the position that Burma Road is a tradition, that it's been used for 35 years at Waco High School. But, Your Honor, the past is not the present, and the past is almost never perfect. To follow the defense's logic, it'd be like saying, we used to play football with no helmets, so it's okay today. We used to manufacture pajamas that light on fire for infants, so it should be okay today. It's like saying we used to ride down Interstate I-559 in the back of a pickup truck. That does not mean it's okay today. Ordinary care is not about what people used to do. It's what people do now. And the coach didn't do what most ordinary people would do now. An ordinary person would have scheduled practice early in the morning. An ordinary coach would have scheduled practice later in the evening, giving his players some shade, giving them some water, giving them a break. But the defendant didn't do that. Instead, he took it to the next level. He debuted a new form of punishment, one that he had never debuted before, one just for Rory Street. The slide tackle drill. He had each one of her teammates take turns pummeling her into the ground. And we heard slide tackles within themselves are brutal. Aubrey Saracen testified that those cleats can get you in the legs and it hurts. Both coach and Aubrey agreed. They can be dangerous. They can hurt. They can be physical. So not only did the defendant subject her to heat, Not only did he not give her enough water, not only did it go too long, not only did he add a whole new form of punishment, he had to do it 15 times. That is not exercising ordinary care. Your Honor, we had to further prove that the defendant's conduct was the proximate cause of Rory Street's death, and that leads us right to it. Proximate cause is when the result would not have happened but for that conduct. If not for 100-degree weather, subjecting his players to it for 3 hours. If not for subjecting her to Burma Road, not offering any breaks, no water. If not for then adding the slide tackle drill, Rory Street does not die. And I want to show you why. Andrew, will you pull up the expert report of Dr. McConaughey, please? And I want to pull up specifically the symptoms Dr. McConaughey talks about regarding heat stroke. Dr. McConaughey lists some of the symptoms of weakness, or of heat stroke, being weakness, being dizziness, being confusion or disorientation, being fatigue, being seizures. Now, the plaintiff offered the report of a Mr. London, a toxicologist. But that report only considers the cocaine and doesn't consider these other factors. Andrew, I'd like to do a side-by-side, if we can, of the difference between heat stroke and cocaine. When we compare these two reports, it doesn't say anything under symptoms of cocaine being weakness, dizziness, confusion, disorientation, fatigue, or seizures. None of those symptoms are listed under cocaine. And we know that right before Rory Street died, she was having seizures. And based on all the testimony we heard today, the symptoms listed under heat stroke are the symptoms most closely related to the description given to us about Rory's physical and mental condition on September 7th. Now, I want to talk about some of these specific statements. Andrew, if you go to the next page of Mr. McConaughey's report. We heard statements such as really struggling, unusually pale, feeling funny, breathing heavy, almost lifeless. Those were the words used to describe Rory's condition on that day. Had Rory not been exposed to that heat, been exposed to that kind of rigorous punishment, had the defendant just exercised ordinary care, Rory Street would still be with us today. Now, as to the question as to whether this was foreseeable, Your Honor, this is a common sense argument. Putting someone in triple-digit heat, subjecting them to rigorous physical punishment, not to mention an hour and 15 minutes of practice right before that, that heat stroke is possible. That is absolutely foreseeable. Any coach of any sport could have foreseen heat stroke in those kind of conditions. But this defendant chose not to take any precautions whatsoever. Now, the defendant could see the symptoms Rory was struggling. The defendant told us himself that he saw Rory struggling. And rather than offering the water, rather than offering the break, rather than offering some shade, or just asking Rory, what's wrong today? The defendant pushed harder because struggling was the point. Because he wanted to teach Rory a lesson, because he thought it was for her own good. Her power is neither good nor evil. It's what a person does with that power that matters. And this defendant chose to abuse his power over a child as a coach, over 17-year-old girls. And because of it, Rory Street is no longer with us. The defendant, Your Honor, is liable.
May I proceed, Your Honor?
Whenever you're ready.
Out of nowhere, what we heard time and time again today, we heard Rory Street's collapse on that tragic afternoon in September was out of nowhere. You heard that from Rory's best friend, longtime teammate, that on that day when Rory collapsed during those slide tackle drills, it felt like it was out of nowhere. No one knew that that was going to happen, and everyone was caught off guard. Now, the plaintiffs have come here today, and they want you to believe that, well, Coach Taylor was negligent. That Coach Taylor's conduct, Coach Taylor's coaching was negligent and somehow approximately caused the death of Rory Street. That, as you heard today, a routine set of drills that had been run over and over and over again were the proximate cause. And other than holding Coach Taylor responsible, there's a lot that the plaintiff and I agree on. Power isn't good or evil. It's what you do with it. Coach Taylor was doing with his power was what he had been doing time and time again for the 6 years of coaching. He had been having players run drills. Yes, it was 100 degrees, as you heard today from just about every witness. From Aubrey Saracen and Coach Taylor was that it is not uncommon for the practice to be in 100-degree heat. What you heard today is that they were running rigorous drills, as they had time and time again. Burma Road is that rigorous drill. This is not a recreational, casual, fun play soccer game. This is training. The purpose is to get better. And I completely agree that just because something has been done traditionally in the past, that doesn't justify things like torture. That doesn't justify things like playing football without helmets. There's another phrase about common sense arguments. That doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results, that's insanity. And this was what everyone had been doing over and over again. Running Burma Road, running these drills. Even this slide tackle drill, while new, what we heard today is that slide tackles are not uncommon. The only thing new here was that there were just more of them in this drill. Now, at the beginning of trial, I asked you to pay attention to the three main things that this trial was about: the substance, the symptoms, and the signs. I want to start with the substance because you see, this is where Rory's power came in. Rory had power. She was a powerful athlete. She was a powerful player, a player who wasn't used to becoming fatigued. Unfortunately, Rory also had the power to have a dangerous drug in her system. Substance that no one else knew was in there. She didn't report that to any coaches. She also had the power to voice that she was feeling uncomfortable. And up until she collapsed, she didn't. Next, we have the symptoms. As the plaintiff mentioned to you, you have two expert reports in front of you today. Expert reports that were pre-admitted in trial. And I'd like to turn your attention to Exhibit 18, the expert report that was mentioned by the toxicologist. Looking at Exhibit 18, this is where we get to another spot where, the plaintiff and I don't necessarily disagree on a lot. We agree that heat stroke contributed to Rory's death, but what was the cause of that heat stroke? This report lays out. Dr. McConaughey described the following symptoms for Rory Street on the day in question: struggling, unusually pale, feeling funny, complained of chest pains, hands on her hips, breathing heavy, groaning, twitching, and convulsing. Many of these symptoms are consistent with cocaine use. Rory complained of chest pain, feeling funny, which could be related to any number of the symptoms of cocaine use. Groaning, which could be related to nausea, and convulsing and twitching on the ground, all are symptoms consistent with cocaine use. Additionally, the autopsy report, in this case, indicated that Rory Street's heart showed signs of myocarditis, which is an inflammation or swelling of the heart muscle. Myocarditis can affect the heart muscle, the heart's electrical system, reducing the heart's ability to pump blood and causing rapid or abnormal heart rhythms, also known as arrhythmia. Myocarditis is one of the physical symptoms associated with cocaine use, which means that this finding is consistent with cocaine use. Just the page before, Your Honor. And just the page before, page plaintiff drew your attention to discussing the various symptoms associated with using cocaine. There was another thing. Cocaine use can ultimately lead to cardiac arrhythmia, heart attacks, cerebral hemorrhage, or stroke and heart failure. Cocaine's use can induce hyperthermia, which lowers the threshold for heat stroke because it inhibits the body's natural cooling process by causing vasoconstriction in the extremities, which keeps most of the blood supply internal. This impairs the body's natural cooling because natural cooling happens when blood is cooled by going to the skin. Cocaine keeps blood from going to the skin by constricting blood vessels. Members of the jury, Rory was a powerful athlete. She had run this drill repeatedly, time and time again. But this time, what was different on this day was that Rory had cocaine in her system, inhibiting her ability to cool, lowering that threshold for heat stroke. And that takes us to the signs. What were the signs that were being exhibited that day? You heard that Rory was struggling during a physical activity, an intense training regimen. Fatigue and struggling, as you heard, are not uncommon during these practices. Coach Taylor had no idea of knowing that what was happening this time wasn't normal fatigue, but was actually induced by a dangerous drug. Now, plaintiff wants you to believe that all of these practices of the timing of this training, of the rigors that these athletes were going through, that these weren't the standard of care. What you heard today was that Coach Taylor regularly attends trainings. Coach Taylor has a wealth of experience in coaching. Coach Taylor has put his training, his regimen into action before. He has put these athletes through difficult challenges before because that's conditioning. This isn't recreational soccer. This is part of the training experience. These players are trying to perform at the top of their level. We heard today that Coach Taylor was standing right there, as was everyone else, but no one once said that Rory was looking completely unusual, that Rory was looking beyond normal fatigue, that Rory was looking like she was in need of medical attention until that sudden collapse came out of nowhere. Coach Taylor, like everyone else that day, was caught completely off guard. He had no way of foreseeing that a routine soccer practice, a practice that had been implemented time and time again, soccer practice that all these athletes, including Rory, had attended time and time again, would suddenly change and turn into tragedy. Taylor, not responsible. Cocaine in Rory's system is responsible. Thank you.
Whenever you're ready.
These people the defense talks about, they're not superhuman machines. They're kids. They want you to believe that the defendant didn't have the power to prevent this. The defendant was a grown man, their coach. He was exactly the one who had the power to prevent this. He just chose to ignore it. The defense said in closing argument themselves that torture is not okay. Torture is not ordinary care. But, Your Honor, torture is exactly what the defendant prescribed. Torture is exactly what Rory endured. Torture by the hand of the defendant is why a 17-year-old girl is no longer with us. The defendant is liable.
All right, thank you, everybody. Scoring judges, if you send your ballots in to Robert, everyone just hang out in the room until we get the okay that all the ballots have been received and everything is good. Yeah, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.